Well, everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat here. There's this stock that pretty much everybody on YouTube and on X was talking about just a few months ago, around May, around June. This became a very, very hot topic. Now, I went on record, on public, on live stream with the Triumvirate with the guys. I also made a clip for my friend Danny's Patreon there, sharing my thoughts on my Metaplanet. I was like, I don't really feel that this is a good play. I was worried about the technicals. And I can replay the clip for you, which I will. If you don't care about, what happened in the past, you just want to know what happened in the future, feel free to skip maybe about 5 minutes into the video. Because I'm going to play a 3-minute clip to kind of show you what my thoughts are initially. And here it goes. I'm just going to go ahead and play it. And for Metaplanet, I do want to say this. There are some things I've seen that are a little bit bearish. There are some things I see that I don't necessarily like that much. One thing is I never really like a candle here with a big giant wick above. That really does get me scared. The other thing I don't like about this is because it does look like you spent 3 weeks losing momentum. 1, 2, and 3. These are not doji candles, but they might as well be. And when you form this kind of 1, 2, 3 pattern, it does remind me of a little bit of a pattern here called bearish tri-star pattern, which can be a top here. And this is a weekly chart, so weekly candle it can be a little bit more of a powerful trend. You can also see there's a little bit of pickup of volume over here last week, which is a little bit, concerning. I don't really like this setup that much. With that said, it is still above the weekly tank and above the weekly Kijun, so I still think that you're going to get some support here around $8 to $9. Shall it need it? Does it have to go down like this? Not necessarily. If it has to, it could go down, bounce off, and can have some very bullish continuation. It depends on whether or not the next move is going to be a higher high or a lower high. If it's a lower high, then be careful in terms of what it's going to do, right? But so far, I just get a little bit more cautious about the tri-star pattern over here, especially how much hype that this stock has had for a very long time. Looking at the weekly bullish band too, you can see how overstretched this is. You simply have things that are just way outside the upper Bollinger Band, had to get pulled down here. It really want to go, really want to stretch the band, but it's now losing some momentum, and currently price is closing the week underneath the Bollinger Band over here. But you can see how many candles you have close above 1, 2, 3. I generally get a little bit more wary whenever you have candles that start to close above or even below the lower Bollinger Band or above the upper Bollinger Band. That does make me wonder, hey, whether or not there's going to be a little bit more powerful trend change here. Does it come all the way down to the 5.2 zone? I don't know. But you would say that, hey, that can't be. This is a Bitcoin-related play. If Bitcoin goes up, this should also go up, right? But not necessarily so. Sometimes you can have some dilution news. Sometimes there's some company-specific news, things like that. It's really, really hard to say, especially when these stocks are over the counter. It's extremely vulnerable to manipulation. And it's losing some momentum here is what I'm trying to say. But again, it could potentially find some support here and bounce. What the reaction is, if it ends up getting down to the $8 or $9 level here, would be important to see. Okay. Another thing that gets me a little bit more wary about Metaplanet is this. If you look at from a very, very, very high time frame, all the way back from 2013, before there even anything related to Bitcoin, all the way down to the recent bottom that is shown, it has already made more than 100x, by the way. If you look at the Japanese market, this is the monthly chart of Metaplanet on the Japanese market. It's already made more than 100x from the bottom. And it's already been hitting FIP level after FIP level after FIP level. It's been hitting a final very, very, very important level over here, which is 0.786. If it pushes through 0.786, then all-time high you go. If it doesn't, then that's it. So I think that this is at a very, very big resistance boss, and it's the first time it's hitting it. Minimally, it's probably going to end up spending more time trying to break through 0.76. Does it follow Bitcoin to the upside? I don't know, because I think this thing has already been independently very, very bullish here for a very long time, and a lot of bullishness might already be priced in. So we will see whether or not Metaplanet could push through the final boss here and make a lot more higher highs, or if it's the first time challenging the final boss, whether or not we're going to have a hard time breaking through and losing a lot of momentum, and for the tri-star pattern, the bearish tri-star pattern to play out. And unfortunately, that was the clip from 3 months ago. A lot of people ended up getting trapped here with a big giant downtrend here from Metaplanet, like simply MTPLF here. This is an over-the-counter stock. Based on Japanese company, I think those are both warning signs for me in terms of trying to stay away. But, and also the fact that it's kind of already gone up like more than 100x. A lot of gains have already been made, even though, yeah, they hold a lot of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's bullish. The hype was just a little bit too much for me. So anyway, the TriStar pattern tend to actually have worked out extremely well, unfortunately. And price has kind of come back down to this liquidity zone over here. You can see a lot of wicks up near resistance over here, basically flipping in support. Now I'm going to be a little bit more fine here. Another reason why I didn't like to get into Metaplanet is because I didn't really have a whole lot of things to chart here, is there? I don't really have a whole lot of price action here to give me any long-term price history. You know, I'm starting to get a little bit of a bullish band here on the weekly, but I just don't have that much price history here. So instead of looking at Metaplanet and give you the exact prices and things like that, I'm just going to go to look at the Japanese version of Metaplanet, which is 3350 to chart this. First thing first is that I am starting to see that on the weekly here, there is some pretty decent wick down here below, right at the liquidity zone right here, or horizontally, right? You can also see that initially this big giant downturn is happening on declining volume here. Over the last 2 weeks, volume has really picked up here around the 0.618 over here, which is a pretty fairly important fit level. Now you see how it got rejected over here. You see how we did break down underneath of it, but we are trying to find some kind of liquidity zone over here. We are trying to find some support around the area over here. And we got a lot of volume over here. So I see some pretty massive capitulation here. A lot of stock over here has been traded hands from the weak to the strong over here. So maybe this is the liquidity zone where we're finding support. Now there's another argument in terms of whether or not we're at a pretty key support right here. This is called the anchored volume weighted average price. So if I end up clicking that point over here, which is the lowest pivot here, you can see that's the lowest point where Metaplanet has ever gone to. It's right around there. So if anybody who ends up just buying from at that point here, a lot of times they might end up adding and just end up averaging up. As long as price is above this point over here, most people are still in profits, and most people might still be interested in buying at support over here. This level over here can serve as some pretty decent support and resistance, and currently is serving as some pretty decent support over here, as you can see, is holding right there right now. Are we going to end up calling this a bottom? I don't know. I'll tell you what other things could potentially be bottoming. I could say that, hey, you know, this is a liquidity zone where it could potentially hold, but there is also a potential that it could end up being somewhere in between 0.618 and 0.5, and price could potentially drop another like 20-30% from here. That's entirely possible. This is the liquidity zone. If you were going to add into Metaplanet, this is not the area to add. This is an area to start potentially adding, is my opinion. Again, I'm never going to tell you exactly what to do, but this is an area to start potentially adding here. I'm not that interested in Metaplanet, but if I see cycle low or all-time low, volume weighted average price being right there, that might be an area where I'm adding. You know, I think the volume is also telling you a lot. A lot of people are basically seeing the same thing here. So that's another area to add. What's another potential area to add that's lower? That could be another 20-30% lower. And this price has to go down that low. No, it doesn't have to. But it could go down to the weekly Ichimoku cloud down here below, right? Right now is around 590. If it goes down to 450, 460 at the top of the Ichimoku cloud, or 380, 375, somewhere around there at the bottom of the Ichimoku cloud, that would still be a reasonable thing to do because you broke through the Ichimoku cloud over here. You see how it got rejected here, pushed through, got rejected over here, pushed through, and it just kind of went up, 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 up. We haven't really had a chance to backtest the Ichimoku cloud yet. Guess what had already backtested the Ichimoku cloud many, many times? MicroStrategy already did that, right? And it found a pretty good reaction over here at the Ichimoku cloud. But Metaplanet has yet to do that. So does it have to go all the way down there and touch it? Maybe, maybe not. That's what I'm saying. Like, you take it one level at a time. This is a level where if you're really interested in technical analysis, I think that is a decent support level based on the volume weighted average price. But it could potentially go down lower to the cloud. And I'll also show you this in terms of like why I think it might actually go down a little bit further, and why that's possible is if you look at the monthly here. If you look at the monthly, if you just look at the 20-month moving average here with the Bollinger Band being shown to you here, you can see that you have a rising 20-month moving average right around 390, right around 400, somewhere around there. So that's a pretty confluent zone where price could have getting pretty decent support over there. Should price decided to go down that low? Nobody knows. This could have been it right here, but lower down, maybe another 20-30%. That could be another level. And then further down below, that's going to be also a relatively strong level. It's going to be the 0.5. You basically talk about price cutting in half from here on up. That's also another potential area. How likely is that going to get down there? I'm not sure. But it's a falling knife, so it's hard for me to say for sure, right? It could go down there, and I think that probably would be like the absolute lowest that it could go. Can it go down to 0.382? Sure, it can. It's a falling knife. I cannot call it. All I can say is just take one level at a time. If you're interested in this company based on fundamentals, these are some of the areas to start adding. And it may never get down to the 400, 390, and never get down to 300. So that's why I'm saying take it one level at a time. Now, another thing I also think that is starting to kind of show a little bit more of a base here, and I generally like to see things form a base here before I just go in, right? You never just want to buy a falling knife. I like to see a base formation. Sometimes it makes a V-shaped recovery and just keeps going up a lot higher. Most stocks don't really do that. Most stocks end up forming a little bit of a base sideways over here. You get to see, kind of get a little bit of a feel here, like a base formation over here, like a base formation over here. You get a little bit of a feel here, like a base formation over here, right? You never just kind of go in. Sometimes it forms a little bit of a double bottom and it makes you a little bit more confident. But I like to see a little bit more base forming here. If you look at RSI, couple of things I would see here. First of all, price has gone up from this point to that point, and RSI has cooled down over here. So you got some what we call like a relative bullish divergence. Usually, a classic bullish divergence is price goes down and RSI goes up. You're like, yeah, momentum is still there. Price is going to keep going up higher. This is a little bit of a different case. Price goes down, price goes up here, and RSI actually goes down. It's a little bit more of a cooling off of this necessarily cool off of the RSI here whenever it gets up to the 90s. So it's kind of done this thing. I don't think necessarily has to go down further, but I just don't have confirmation. That's the thing. The other thing is I see on the daily chart here, I'm going to put the RSI here again. On the daily chart, you're starting to see a little bit of a live here. What I mean by a little bit of live here is you're starting to see that price has gone down over here and RSI is starting to bottom out over here. You have a little bit of a bullish divergence here. Price goes down, RSI goes up. So that does tell me that I think the bearish momentum here is slowing down significantly, and the RSI has been forming a base over here. But does it guarantee you that the stock's not going to go down further? No, it doesn't. I don't know that for sure. Nobody knows that for sure. And I honestly think that if anybody's really being extremely that bullish when price is at the peak over here, have problems with the with understanding the technicals based on based on the evidence I was just showing you. And I think it's okay to start to be a little bit more bullish here on this stock right between the 0.618 and 0.5. I don't have the correlate level for Metaplanet, but just use that as a guide. I already kind of told you it could go down 20-30%. It could further go down another 50%. I think it's entirely possible. But I do think that at this point, because of the volume that is coming in, I do think that the stock is being traded hands from the strong from the weak to the strong. That's all I can really say. I don't know if I would ever really want to get into a play like this where it's over the counter based on a foreign company. I've kind of learned my lessons over the years to not do that. But I just think it's kind of tough to do when people focus on fundamentals and people focus on the hype and things like that. Nobody's going to want to make a Metaplanet video right now. Nobody's caring enough to make a Metaplanet video. They're going to make a video about something that's being hyped up like Bitfarms, IREN, other things that are hot right now in the market, Open Door. Nobody's going to make a Metaplanet video right now. I'm making it because I am being asked a lot to make it in terms of sharing my thoughts. And I'm making it because I just have something to say about it. I don't really have a stake in this. I don't really care to get into it. But if you're holding the bag here, these are kind of the decisions that you have to make. it's probably bottoming out, but I don't have confirmation, and it could potentially go down lower. I think the probability of that is relatively low. Because I also find that MicroStrategy is also finding pretty decent support here. With that said, I can never tell you what to do. I would be very, very struggling right now if I was kind of backholding this, hearing what I have to say, which is why I never really got into the stock in the first place. Figure out your risk-reward ratio if you have another good setup. I'm not talking about chasing something else like Open Door that's gone like all the way to like, double digits or whatever. I'm not talking about like chasing something else. I'm just talking about maybe use this as like a lesson, both in terms of technical as well as investment trading. And see if you find better opportunities, you can switch. If not, if you already lost a lot of money anyway from this, I don't know what to tell you. Again, I never tell you what to do. I'm just basically presenting my case, telling you what I think. I wish the best luck to everybody. And I do think that if you think that the fundamentals of this company, based on the amount of Bitcoin that they're holding, based on NAV, everybody's focusing on NAV. If you believe in the fundamentals of the company, then keep following that strategy. Don't listen to any of this technical crap, right? But you find this technical stuff to be helpful, especially if you find that to be helpful back in June when I was saying it. Consider, subscribing to my channel or following me on X. I'll try my best to share with you what I think. Never tell you what to do, but I'm not going to be shy about telling you what I think about stuff. Alright guys, take care, bye.